If you're looking for bedtime stories, you're in the wrong place. But if you've got a brain wired for patterns and a gut that knows something's off, pull up a chair and let's analyze this case. Truth doesn't expire, it just gets buried. Under layers of headlines, hashtags, and hollow investigations, a little girl's face became an icon of the missing. But icons don't bleed. Children do. May 3rd, 2007, Praia da Luz, Portugal. A quiet resort town turned global spectacle. 3-year-old Madeleine McCann vanished from her bed while her parents dined just meters away. Or so the story goes. This isn't just about one missing child. This is about a machine that knows how to erase people and keep the spotlight just dim enough that you miss what's hiding in the dark. We're not here to point fingers. We're here to follow the prints they tried to scrub clean. Because in this world, the real predators don't live under your bed. They sip wine, sign deals, and smile for the cameras. So buckle up, truth seekers. Virgil Grey is on the case. It starts, like all stories they want you to forget, at a place that looks like paradise. Praia da Luz, Portugal, a sleepy resort town that woke up to a nightmare. May 3rd, 2007, Apartment 5A, Ocean Club Resort. The McCann family, Jerry, Kate, and their 3 children, including 3-year-old Madeleine, were staying just steps away from the Algarve coastline. That night, Madeleine was allegedly left asleep in a bedroom with her 2 younger siblings, while the parents dined at a tapas bar about 50 meters away. They claim to have checked on the children every 20 to 30 minutes. At approximately 10 p.m., Kate McCann enters apartment 5A and raises the alarm. Madeleine is gone. The world never looked at family holidays the same way again. Now let's untangle the contradictions and hold the evidence to the light. 8:30 p.m. Jerry and Kate McCann arrive at the tapas bar with friends, the Tapas 7. 9:05 p.m. Jerry checks on the kids, claims all were asleep. 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. Jane Tanner, a member of the group, claims to see a man carrying a child in pajamas walking across the street near the apartment. 10 p.m. Kate McCann checks and finds Madeleine gone. But here's the first breadcrumb. No physical sign of forced entry. The apartment door was reportedly unlocked. The shutters, said to have been jimmied open, showed no damage. And what about the timeline of checks? Inconsistent, contradictory. Even members of the Tapas 7 couldn't align their stories.
Some more breaking news for you this morning. We're just hearing that a search is underway for a 3-year-old British girl who's gone missing in the Algarve area of Portugal, and she went missing last night. Hundreds of people have been searching for the girl, and that search continuing this morning. It's been confirmed by the Foreign Office. Some more detail on this for you now. The Portuguese police are investigating the disappearance from a holiday complex in Praia da Luz in the western Algarve. I think we've got a map we can show you there. The Foreign Office spokesman has said that he understood the girl's parents had gone to have dinner once their children were asleep last night, but returned to check on them only to find that the little girl had gone missing, and they reported the little girl's disappearance straight away, and they are being given consular assistance in Portugal, but no word on to where this little girl has gone, and considerable efforts being made indeed to try to track down at extraordinary difficult time for her parents. But it would appear that she went missing after the parents had gone to have supper, went back to check that she was okay, check on the children were okay, and the 3-year-old had gone missing. As soon as we get any further detail on that, we'll bring it to you. A 3-year-old British girl has gone missing in the Algarve in Portugal, of course. We can speak now to Dan Mason, who's a journalist who works in that area. Dan, thanks for joining us on Sky News Sunrise this morning. What are the details that you've gleaned so far?
Hello, yeah. All I basically know is that the child was obviously staying at a Mark Warner establishment and was reported missing around 6 p.m. last night. She's 3 years old, answers to the name of Madeleine or Maddie, fair hair, and most of the people within the area were searching through to about 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and obviously through hedges and down the beach, etc. To no avail, and I've just been down this morning to the club again to see if there's any more news, and the situation is basically the same. So I don't know the family personally. I was just basically heard via word of mouth that this was happening.
In August 2007, 2 specially trained sniffer dogs were brought in from the UK. One trained to detect blood, the other, cadaver scent. Both hit in the same spots: behind the sofa in the McCann's apartment, on Kate McCann's clothing, on the child's soft toy, inside the rental car the McCanns hired weeks later. You don't need a badge to know what that implies, but instead of widening the investigation, Portuguese police, under media fire, narrowed it. And when the McCanns were officially declared arguidos, suspects, British media went into spin mode.
We screened the vehicles using the dog, and the only reaction we've had is to the car in the far corner. And what we have is a reaction from the dog over here, where his head's up in the air, and he's scenting the items that he's trained to find. And when we tie him down, he picks this guy from this door. He's realised he's picking the scent that's coming out through the seal of the door. Okay, what we've done is we deployed the enhanced victim recovery dog into the apartment, and by experience and the training of the dog, what I've first noticed is that as soon as I came in, that the dog's very excited, and as a handler I can pick up his body language, etc. It would appear to me that as soon as he's come in the house, he's picked up a scent that he recognises. The second dog that we've seen work today, crime scene dog, Keela, she will only indicate to me when she's found human blood. At this point over here, where the victim recovery dog was indicated, as you saw on the video, the crime scene dog was actually giving me what we call a passive indication, where she freezes in this spot here, which would indicate to me that there is some human blood there. She will find blood that's historically very old, and she will find anybody's blood, any human blood, which is important to make sure that everybody knows. The fact that there's other scientific methods being used may stop you recovering any DNA, but if you try, we'll see what happens. But she is very, very good, and when she indicates, there is always blood there.
Theories at a glance. 1. Stranger abduction, the original narrative. An opportunistic kidnapper snuck in and took Madeleine without waking her siblings. No forensic evidence supports this. 2. Parental involvement. Cover-up. The dogs, the inconsistencies, the oddly calm behavior. Some theorists believe Madeleine died accidentally, perhaps sedated, and the cover-up spiraled. Third, trafficking network. Abduction. Multiple witness reports of suspicious men near the resort in the days prior. A known surge in child trafficking activity in southern Portugal at the time. Was Madeleine targeted, not taken at random? 4. Elite protection, diplomatic interference. Here's where the water gets dark. The McCanns had high-level political backing almost immediately. Tony Blair's government sent a spin doctor within days. Why? Why were the parents granted unprecedented media control, even hiring private PR and legal teams within weeks? Who was protecting them, or protecting something bigger?
Jerry and Kate, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. I'd like to begin by taking you back to the events of May the 3rd on that evening. Tell us how you discovered that Madeleine had gone.
As I think people are aware, we were checking regularly on the children, and it was during one of my checks that I discovered she'd gone. I mean, I can't really go into any details about that, but I'm sure any parent will realise how that felt.
Did the panic set in immediately?
Yeah, pretty much.
This is a resort that offers childcare facilities, babysitting facilities. Why then were the 3 young children left alone in the apartment while you were having a meal?
I mean, I think if you know the location here, which you've seen, what we did, I think, and we've been reassured by the fact in the thousands of messages from people who've either done exactly the same or said they would have done the same. And for us, it really wasn't very much different to having dinner in your garden and the proximity of the location. I think it's fair to say that, you know, the guilt that we feel having not been there at that moment, irrespective of whether we had been in the other bedroom or not, will never leave us.
Do you blame yourselves regularly?
Certainly the first few days, I think the guilt was very difficult. But I think as time goes on, we feel stronger, and we felt very supported from that point of view.
Is there a lesson here, do you think, to other parents?
I think that's a very difficult thing to say, because if you look at it and we try to rationalise things in our head, and ultimately what is done, and we do continually look forward, but we've tried to put it into some sort of perspective for ourselves. We're in a very safe resort. If you think about the millions and millions of British families who go to the Mediterranean each year, really the chances of this happening are in the order of 100 million to 1.
I think at worst we were naive. I mean, we're very responsible parents. We love our children very much, and I don't think any parent could ever imagine or consider anything like this happening.
Were you aware of the big public debate that went on in the immediate aftermath, and were you hurt by that?
Yeah,
naturally.
I mean, no one hurts you as much as the hurt that we had. But, you know, we've tried to remain very positive in our outlook. And even small levels of criticism make that hard when you're trying to do everything in your power to get your daughter back.
Breadcrumb moments. A CIA-linked document appeared in WikiLeaks suggesting that U.S. intelligence was monitoring the case closely, more than you'd expect for a single abduction. A British socialite, Clement Freud, who lived nearby and befriended the McCanns after the disappearance, was posthumously exposed as a serial child abuser. A growing list of missing children from European resorts began surfacing. Elenia Carisi, Catrice Lee, Inga Gericka. Different names, same shadows. This isn't just a story of a lost child. It's the story of who gets to control the narrative and why certain truths are treated like radioactive waste. Madeleine's disappearance didn't just shock the world. It exposed a network of silence, and the silence screams.
I cannot love Madeleine more than I love her. You know, I would never have taken a risk. It was something that it wasn't even a decision. That's how safe it felt, you know.
What
And it didn't
information
help.
did we have to suggest it wasn't going to be safe? We were dining 50 yards away. We were making regular checks. We were going into the apartment, always quiet every night. And if we had thought it was unsafe for a minute, if there was any conscious element that somebody was going to go into that apartment and steal your child, then of course we wouldn't have done that.
But it wasn't just a matter of being unsafe, was it? I mean, is it the case, you can clear it up right here now, was Madeleine upset the night before about being left alone? Had she had a moment and got out of bed and started crying and started looking for you?
I mean, I don't want to dwell on it too much. I mean, I don't know if you saw the documentary last night, so I mean, I have talked about it. Madeleine made a comment in passing that where were you when I cried? Not just to Mummy, by the way, just generally. It just seemed a bit odd. I mean, it was a very kind of passing remark, and we just thought she doesn't usually wake up, and she woke up, that means that, you know, she must have fallen back asleep very quickly. And then she moved on. You know, she moved on.
Anybody with young children will understand that children cry, they wake up at night. During that week, there was one night, and we can't give too much detail because it's part of the investigation file, but there was one night when Madeleine had come through and one of the other twins was crying. So, you know, and when she did mention it to us and we asked her about it, and she just dropped, she was completely fine. And we thought, was it when they were bathing, getting them, you know, first putting them down in that period when they're really tired? Of course, with hindsight, in the context of what happened, of Madeleine being abducted, it's put in a very different light, and it's put in a very different light to us, and of course we emphasise that.
If Madeleine hadn't been abducted, we'd never have thought of that comment again.
In most cases, the media is a bloodhound, sniffing for scandal, tearing flesh from bone. But in this one, it became a leash, held tightly by invisible hands. Within 48 hours, the McCanns had diplomatic support, crisis PR, and legal counsel most grieving families can't afford in a lifetime. They weren't treated like suspects. They were treated like diplomats.
She was just really good company, you know, just... she's like my little friend sort of all the time. The ones that Madeleine has done, I just can't pull down, to be honest. Yep, the train. You've probably hit on the most emotional one, actually. Yeah, it says here, Madeleine Donegal, Easter 2007, and that was the April we went to Portugal. You know, I look back and think, God, why can't we just rewind the clock? And it takes you back to really happy memories, you know, things that you really enjoyed, and it's just a reminder, really, of what isn't here anymore.
The British government sent Clarence Mitchell, head of the UK's media monitoring unit, to manage their press. Let me say that again. A media spin doctor from the Prime Minister's office was dispatched to a missing child case. Why?
With all the vile accusations, the trolling, all of that, some of the stuff that's coming out from some of the ex-people that were in this in the Portuguese police is astounding.
It's just... it is as disgusting and offensive as it is laughable and implausible, some of the suggestions that are being made. I'm afraid, as Jerry said, you do see the best, but you also see the worst, and that seems to be inhabiting the online space. People feel they can be very brave, anonymously, behind a keyboard, without any sense of being held to account for what they say. An awful lot of people need to look into their own conscience to realise the sort of pain that they're causing with these casual, vile remarks, based on nothing. Based on assumptions and prejudice.
The McCanns' odd behavior following their daughter's disappearance was also noted. 0 tears in public interviews, refusal to answer 48 key questions during Portuguese police interrogations, deleted phone records and missing call logs from the critical days around May 3rd. They lawyered up before being named suspects. Madeleine's stuffed toy, Cuddle Cat, was reportedly washed after cadaver scent was detected on it. Grief is strange, but hiding the scent of death? That's not strange, that's strategic.
We don't read Portuguese, so I think that's the first thing to say, that we haven't read the accounts firsthand. There does seem to be a consistency this week and claims from police sources, but to be perfectly frank, we don't know how much of that is true and how much of it's speculation. What we do know is that speculation certainly doesn't help us. We know a number of the facts, and I have not seen any evidence or know of any direct evidence to have changed our viewpoint to what we've held for the last 100 days. And we've said all along, and everything we've done during the last 100 days is focused on the belief that Madeleine was alive when she was abducted, and certainly we were encouraged in that respect, and everything we've done is to increase the chances of her being returned.
The main suspects and suspicious figures: 1. Jerry and Kate McCann. Official suspects for a time. Inconsistent accounts. Alleged traces of blood and cadaver scent in their apartment and rental car. Still maintain their innocence. 2. Robert Murat, British-Portuguese man living nearby. First person declared arguido. Was seen lingering near the crime scene. Ultimately cleared, but dragged through media hell. 3. Clement Freud, elderly British politician and broadcaster. Lived minutes away from the McCanns' resort. Invited the McCanns to dinner just weeks after Madeleine's disappearance. Posthumously revealed to be a serial child predator. Predators often orbit tragedy, not to mourn, but to feed. 4. Martin Grimes' cadaver dogs. Not a suspect, but a silent witness. Trained to detect dead bodies and blood. Signaled at behind the sofa in apartment 5. Inside the McCanns' rented Renault, Kate McCann's clothes, Madeleine's toy, the back garden, but police didn't follow the scent. They buried it. 5. Jane Tanner claimed she saw a man carrying a child near the apartment at 9:15 p.m. Her description changed repeatedly. Portuguese police said her account conflicted with timelines of other witness sightings. 6. Tannerman, Smithman. 2 separate alleged sightings of men carrying a child in pajamas. The Smith family, Irish tourists, claim the man they saw looked like Jerry McCann, but this was dismissed quickly. 7. Suspected trafficking ring reports of men scoping out the apartment complex in the days prior. Phone records suggest unusual calls between known traffickers near the resort. Interpol and Europol never fully revealed what came of those leads. Operation Grange, Scotland Yard, launched years later in 2011, rebranded the case as an abduction, discarding prior leads. 13+ million spent and no answers. If this had been a poor family with no political connections, would they have received diplomatic protection? Would they have had access to elite lawyers and PR machines? Or would they be sitting in a Portuguese prison? Every machine leaves a footprint, and this one's oil is made of secrecy, privilege, and dead ends. But footprints don't lie, not if you follow them all the way down. Forensic inconsistencies. Cadaver dog and blood dog alerts were ignored by media outlets and later minimized by British authorities. Samples with a high DNA match to Madeleine were labeled too degraded or inconclusive, despite being found in key locations, under the tiles behind the sofa. In the trunk of the McCann's car, rented 24 days after Madeleine disappeared, the FSS emails revealed internal doubt. We can't say definitively it's her, but we can't say it's not. And just like that, science was silenced. The McCann's phones held potential evidence, texts, calls, location pings. But those records? Gone, deleted, wiped before they handed their phones over to police. Even the Tapas 7's phones were scrubbed. Portugal requested that UK police release metadata. The request was stalled, then buried. The press didn't chase truth, it chased narrative control. Major UK tabloids ran unquestioning headlines pushing the abduction theory. When Portugal named the McCanns suspects, the UK government stepped in to protect their reputation. Meanwhile, whistleblowers like Gonçalo Amaral, the lead Portuguese investigator, were discredited and sued for suggesting the McCanns were involved. His book, The Truth of the Lie, was banned in the UK for years. When the truth threatens power, it becomes contraband.
Reader's statement on behalf of Kate and Jerry McCann. We have instructed our lawyers to sue a Portuguese publication, Telequel, for defamation. The legal action follows the publication on the 24th of August 2007 of a front-page story that we found deeply hurtful and believed to be completely untrue. The paper claimed we killed our lovely daughter Madeleine. This is without evidence or truth. The past 120 days have been horrific for us, our family and friends. We have tried to ignore some of the more ludicrous speculation, but we simply could not ignore T&Q's report. We firmly believe that these sorts of unfounded reports distract people from the only thing that matters, finding Madeleine. Our daughter Madeleine was snatched from her bed on the 3rd of May. She is still missing. The police have said time and time again, we are not suspects. These are the facts.
Madeleine wasn't the first child to vanish near elite playgrounds. She wasn't the last. Inga Gericke, gone in Germany, 2015. Catrice Lee, gone in 1981, military base, vanished like smoke. Elenia Carisi, daughter of 2 famous Italian singers, disappeared in New Orleans in '94. Sightings placed her in the French Quarter, rumored to be trafficked. In each case, no clear suspects, powerful families, strange legal obstructions, and always missing evidence. Add in the Epstein network, Belgium's Dutroux affair, and the whispers of a Vatican pipeline. This isn't a series of disconnected tragedies. It's a pattern, a blueprint carved by monsters who know how to operate above consequence. When voices speak out against the system, they don't just echo, they vanish. Just like Madeleine, just like truth. There's a moment when you realize the reflection isn't reality. It's the mask reality wears. You stare into the glass long enough, and it starts to stare back. But in this case, it's what the mirror doesn't show that matters most.
We do know that they have not allowed the full story to come out. And I think it's very interesting now that the main man behind it, Martin Frizzell, Fiona Phillips' husband, is now leaving ITV. Finally. And we're talking, in the most recent incarnation of ITV, he's been there for 10 years. Yeah. And that man knows a lot of secrets. He was the one who launched the Madeleine McCann narrative, Martin Frizzell. He launched the Madeleine McCann narrative that she had been abducted on the 4th of May, right? Martin?
We should clarify, because we spoke about this last time.
We did.
You believe that she was killed by or an accident by the parents?
I believe that an accident took place, and I believe that she was never abducted, and that I believe that the Portuguese police files are correct, and that is she likely fell down off the sofa onto the concrete floor, likely cracked her head and died behind the sofa, and that was why the cadaver and blood dogs came in and sniffed, and I think it was 15 out of 19 alleles, which corresponded with Madeleine's DNA, which is high. It's a high count, and nobody else had died in that apartment before because they'd done a history of it as well, so it's highly likely she died in that apartment. But the reason that I make that connection there between Martin Frizzell and Philip Schofield is because on the day after Madeleine had been reported missing, which was the 3rd of May, on the 4th of May, Martin Frizzell was the editor of the breakfast show that preceded Good Morning Britain on ITV, and Fiona Phillips hosted it, and he was the editor, and he allowed one of the McCann's good friends to come on live on this breakfast show and say, child went missing last night in Portugal. Now, that just never happens. Everything obviously is unprecedented to do with Madeleine McCann, but Martin Frizzell solidified that story in the mind of the nation, that the narrative was that a child had gone missing in Portugal. So that's Martin Frizzell. And Martin Frizzell was also essentially Philip Schofield's handler, right, for want of a better description. They were thick as thieves. I find it absolutely impossible that Martin Frizzell was not aware of what was going on, because I used to go into This Morning regularly as a talking head, and I saw this lad around there a lot, right? And what I didn't understand was, for a runner, he seemed to be able to go everywhere, including to award ceremonies, and go on the stage with them. This was unheard of. But I didn't realise what was going on. So I was only in and out as a talking head. But if you're the editor, right, or you're the co-host, the best mate, Holly Willoughby, I find it impossible to believe they didn't know what was going on. Find it impossible.
In 2011, the British government launched Operation Grange. On the surface, a £13 million effort to find Madeleine McCann. Beneath the surface, a curated, politically sterilized investigation. The directive? To support the abduction theory. Let that sink in. From the very beginning, Operation Grange was not an open investigation. It was a narrative enforcer. Any theory involving parental involvement, accidental death, or cover-up was discarded. Even the original Portuguese case files were undermined and rewritten. This wasn't justice, it was optics.
We, in consultation with our Portuguese colleagues, are absolutely committed to finding out what happened to Madeleine McCann. And we've been in a unique position over the last 2 years in drawing together 3 strands, Portuguese, UK and private investigators' material. From that, a vast quantity of material has been analysed, and we have identified 38 persons of interest, and within that 12 who are UK nationals. And it's from that position that we've been able to move from review to investigation. Those 38 people in total from a number of European countries, and obviously the inquiries that we seek to undertake will be to understand more about what role, if any, they played in Madeleine's disappearance. What I should say, though, over the last 2 years, the review has told me is that there is no clear definitive proof that Madeleine McCann is dead. And so on that basis, I still genuinely believe that there is a possibility that she's alive. And so I would ask the public to continue to look for her.
Scotland Yard hand-picked 4 suspects, later cleared. They called them burglars, then Eastern European sex traffickers, then nothing. Each shift in narrative was fed to the media like breadcrumbs, but they never led to a door. They led to a loop. Psychological warfare. How the public was programmed. 1. The perfect victim. The media constructed a saint, not a child, because saints silence skepticism. 2. Flood the zone over 200 front-page stories in the first 6 months, all reinforcing the same unproven narrative. She was taken.
I'm sorry for the more than 100 articles about Kate and Jerry McCann, the parents of Madeleine, the little girl gone missing for nearly a year. Articles, the Daily Star acknowledges, suggesting the couple were responsible for, or may be responsible for, the death of their daughter Madeleine and for covering it up.
The exceptional publication of these apologies, together with today's statement of full apology in open court before Mr. Justice Eadie, was the only just and proper response by Express newspapers following our complaint.
Portuguese authorities still consider the McCanns suspects in the case. They have maintained their innocence and set up an international team of private investigators, lawyers, and volunteers to help find Madeleine. They've also set up a fund, and as part of this settlement, Express newspapers, publishers of the tabloids that apologize, will add about $1.1 million to that fund.
3rd, vilify the doubters' Portuguese police. investigative journalists. Even Gonzalo Amaral, the original lead detective, was sued into silence. Why? Because he wrote a book that asked the question, what if she died in that apartment? The Truth of the Lie is a controversial and revealing account by Gonzalo Amaral, the Portuguese police inspector who initially led the investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann in 2007. The book outlines Amaral's perspective on the case, detailing the investigative steps taken by the Policia Judiciaria, PJ, the inconsistencies in the McCann parents' statements, and the shift in the investigation's direction from abduction to possible involvement of the parents in Madeleine's disappearance. Amaral argues that the evidence increasingly pointed toward the likelihood that Madeleine died in the apartment and that the abduction narrative may have been a cover-up. He discusses forensic findings, the use of cadaver dogs, and the political and media pressures that interfered with the investigation. The book is both a defense of the work of the PJ and an indictment of how external influences, especially from British authorities and media, obstructed the pursuit of truth. Amaral also criticizes how the McCanns were portrayed as victims despite discrepancies and unanswered questions, ultimately suggesting that the truth was buried beneath diplomatic sensitivities and media manipulation.
3 years after Madeleine McCann disappeared while on a family holiday in Portugal, and her anguished parents, Kate and Jerry, are still no closer to finding out what happened to their daughter. But today they've been told that a controversial book by the man who once led the search for Madeleine will stay off the shelves, something they're delighted about. Maddie, The Truth of the Lie, was written by a former Portuguese detective, Gonzalo Amaral, in July 2008. In it, he claims Madeleine died in her parents' holiday villa in Praia de Luz and that they faked her abduction. A judge in Lisbon granted the McCanns a temporary injunction against the book last September, preventing it from being sold or published. Amaral tried to get that ban overturned, but now he's been told things will stay as they are. Kate and Jerry McCann were worried the allegations in the book might hamper the investigation into Madeleine's disappearance.
You want to know who took Madeleine? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking, who let it happen? Who benefited? Who made sure no one could ever really know? There's no closure in this story, because closure is for fiction. What we're left with is the echo, the trail, the patterns, and the next name on the list. Because when you tug hard enough on the right thread, even the most intricate web unravels. So keep your eyes open. The machine protects its own until someone breaks it. 4. Emotional blackmail. Public appeals with Madeleine's favorite toys, her photo aged digitally year after year. The machine used sympathy as a shield. Question it? You're a monster. But sympathy without scrutiny is just obedience.
Morning. I'm Clarence Mitchell, for those who don't know me. I feel so strongly that they are the innocent victims of a heinous crime that I am prepared to forego my government career to assist them. In Jerry's case, my position as an impartial civil servant working for the... To suggest that they somehow harmed Madeleine, accidentally or otherwise, is as ludicrous as it is nonsensical. Indeed, it would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. Because of the legal position that continues to exist in Portugal, I can't go into any further detail. Suffice to say that there are entirely innocent explanations for anything the police may have found during their inquiries out there. And the McCanns, of course, are very happy to continue cooperating with the Portuguese authorities to establish the truth of what exactly has happened to Madeleine. The focus must now return to Madeleine and move away from the rampant, unfounded and inaccurate speculation of recent days. The focus must be the child at the very centre of all this, Madeleine. The task is simple, to find her and to understand why she has disappeared. Kate and Jerry are therefore again urging everyone to keep looking, not to forget the search for Madeleine, as they firmly believe that she could still be alive. Finally, I'd also like to take this opportunity to appeal to media organisations around the world, in particular television stations and media picture desk editors, that Madeleine's brother and sister, Sean and Amelie, were brought back here to England to resume in privacy, as much as is possible under the circumstances, a normal life. Kate and Jerry again urge everyone in the media not to use their image in your coverage from now on, as the privacy of infants must surely remain paramount. Thank you very much in a moment, but I'll be back shortly. Thank you.
And then there's the matter of influence. Kate McCann became an ambassador for the UK's Missing People charity.
Her daughter Madeleine disappeared whilst on a family holiday in Portugal. Kate McCann has had first-hand experience of dealing with the pain and heartbreak of having a loved one go missing.
Well, whilst the search for her daughter continues, Kate is about to help launch a brand new initiative that will hopefully help find some of the thousands of people that go missing in the UK each year. And Kate is here now to tell us all about it. And we were just saying that you don't do many of these things on your own, do you?
I don't usually have Jerry next to me, you're right.
Well, this is a very big launch, and the launch is tomorrow, the biggest billboard campaign in British history. So how is it going to work? What is it?
Well, basically it's a 12-week nationwide campaign, and the Outdoor Media Centre, which is kind of the trade body for all the outdoor media owners, so all the people that own billboard space in your cities, towns, on your public transport, they've teamed up with the charity Missing People, basically to try and find missing children and adults. So starting tomorrow, across these screens, there'll be featured one child and one adult per week. So there'll be a photograph, the location, time when they were last seen, and a number, 116 000 to call. And the idea is, we know that outdoor advertising works, and we know that publicity is crucial to help find missing children, and it works.
She was invited to speak at the Vatican. She met Pope Benedict, the same Pope who later resigned under the shadow of institutional abuse scandals.
He was very kind, very sincere. He said that he'd pray for us and our family, and that he'd continue to pray for Madeleine's safe return to us.
One evil act with the abduction of Madeleine seems to be generating so much good, and we seem to be on the receiving end of that goodwill and wishes, and it certainly restored my faith.
Jerry McCann was welcomed to speak at the European Parliament about child safety. Their platform grew, but the truth didn't. Why? Because the McCann case is not just about a girl. It's about what happens when the machine adopts your story.
This declaration calls on member states to introduce a missing child alert, the activation of which shall require the immediate supply to relevant news media, border authorities, customs and law enforcement agencies details of the missing child.
For particular reasons. It's been around for over 20 years.
We implore you to support our declaration. Please do not wait for another child and family to suffer as we have before agreeing to support the implementation of an alert system in Europe. Please sign your name to the declaration.
We don't know how long we're going to be Arguido. We are very concerned that until this system is implemented, other children and other families will suffer. And clearly, for the time being, there is massive media attention focused on Madeleine and ourselves. And the fact that all of you are here today is in no small part to the circumstances which we have experienced. And I think, in the very least, we're qualified to talk about such a system.
It's all the same story, just told with different victims, different reporters, different levels of acceptable horror. Through the looking glass, things appear familiar, but turn your head slightly, and the reflection changes. Nothing is as it seems, and maybe that's the point.
A new lead in the search for Madeleine. The McCann's investigators have released an image of a woman they want to speak to about the toddler's disappearance. She was seen in Barcelona just 3 days after Madeleine went missing in May 2007 and is thought to have an Australian or a New Zealand accent. Sky's crime correspondent Martin Brunt reports.
She's described as glamorous and expensively dressed, a Victoria Beckham lookalike with an Australian accent, and she could hold the key to Madeleine McCann's disappearance. The McCann's investigators said she gave potentially vital information to a new witness, a British man, near a marina bar in Barcelona. They wouldn't reveal what she said.
The witness got up and walked over himself towards the woman, and they had a short conversation. The woman spoke to him briefly. This conversation was potentially significant to the investigation into Madeleine's disappearance. However, for strict operational reasons, the investigators or I will not be divulging any detail of what was said to the witness by the woman.
The brief encounter happened at the Port Olympic Marina. The British man was on a stag night. It's believed the woman mistook him for a drug dealer. Personal reasons stopped him coming forward earlier.
We're satisfied that he's an extremely credible witness. He's a professional man. He holds a very senior position in the firm he works for. And as I say, we've done other background checks on his credibility, and we're more than satisfied.
There have been many supposed sightings of Madeleine since she vanished in May 2007, but there's no evidence at all of what happened to her. She'd been left in bed with her brother and sister at the family holiday apartment in the Portuguese resort of Praia da Luz. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, were dining with friends nearby and discovered her gone during the evening. On the second anniversary of her disappearance this year, they released an image of how Madeleine might look now. Since she vanished, several images of suspects have been issued. The first was laughably vague. This one of a possible abductor supplied by one of the McCann's fellow holidaymakers. There were 2 images issued by Portuguese police, and this one released 3 months ago.
The most deafening sound in the world is the one no one talks about. We built this whole case on whispers, on partial prints, on headlines paid for by silence. But even silence has a language, and I've been listening. Madeleine McCann was more than a symbol. She was a child, and what happened to her should have shaken the world awake. But it didn't. Instead, we watched it happen again, and again, and again. Adam Walsh, John Benet Ramsey, Inga Gericke, Elenia Carisi. Different countries, different stories, same black hole. Where powerful people hold the pen, children disappear into footnotes.
And in terms of what might come out of this, John, it's been 6 years. I mean, is it possible that they really could find this person? Is it possible that the child is alive in your view?
Well, absolutely. Remember Elizabeth Smart. She was gone for 8 months. Everybody gave up, and we were lucky enough to not give up on America's Most Wanted. Elizabeth's mother and father were convinced that she was still alive, and she was. Look at J.C. Dugard. She was kept in the backyard by a level 3 convicted pedophile for 18 years and fathered 2 children by this guy, this creep. And Maddie could be alive. It would be wonderful if Maddie was alive. And I tell parents all the time, especially Kate and Jerry, who Reve and I, my wife and I, went to see in England when they were being brutalized by the British press, and the Portuguese police had pointed the finger back at them and almost destroyed their lives, to never give up hope. So they're hoping that Maddie will be alive. It would be a wonderful end to this story.
It certainly would be. It'd be a miracle watched around the world. John, thank you.
Operation Grange will close someday. They'll say they did their best, spent the money, reviewed the files, offered prayers. But the machine never prays. It calculates. And if there's one thing this case proves, it's that truth isn't missing. It's held hostage.
Let's talk to former detective inspector. He's an MBE, Hamish Brown. Good evening, Hamish.
Good evening to you, Kevin.
Now, Kate McCann, obviously we have the utmost sympathy for the 2 doctors McCann, but she said a lot of progress has been made. I mean, did anyone ever make much progress in trying to work out whatever happened to poor little Maddie?
Well, what you've got to remember is it's not just the Metropolitan Police involved here. The German and the Portuguese authorities seem to take the lead at the moment, and they may have a suspect. There's talk about that, isn't there? But the Met, perhaps they changed something when they went out there, and I just wonder if the authorities there took their eye off the ball. Indeed, if they ever had their eye on the ball in the first place, it was an utterly appalling start where the flat wasn't properly forensicated. And indeed, would you believe it, it was let out to someone for a couple of weeks before the forensic people went in. It was utterly ridiculous.
Just when the machine thinks it's scrubbed the blood from the floor, another trail reappears. Enter Christian Brueckner, convicted pedophile, known drifter, drug trafficker, and in 2020 declared the prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Brueckner was living in a camper van just 30 minutes from Praia da Luz in 2007. He allegedly made a phone call near the resort at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Police say he bragged to a friend about knowing what happened to her. They also found child abuse material and missing children's swimsuits in his possession during a previous raid. Sounds like a slam dunk, right? Then why? No charges for Madeleine's case? Why did it take 13 years to identify him when German police already had him on radar? Why did the German authorities leak the case publicly before even questioning him? And why is Brueckner still denying involvement? Could he be a fall guy, a convenient scapegoat, or a sick man who was simply there while the real operation unfolded above him? Because here's the quiet part out loud. Christian Brueckner may be guilty of 1,000 things, but when the elites want the trail to end, they hand us a monster and hope we stop looking in the mirror.
Rob Patterson, senior reporter at The Sun, is here with us. The front page this morning, a real tour de force. Rob, welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Maddie, the unseen evidence, an incredible piece of journalism. Full story, over 4 pages inside, pages 2, 3, 4 and 5. And it's all about the investigation into Christian Brueckner, the chief suspect in the Madeleine McCann case. He's thought to have been the main suspect for quite a long time. This is all about a documentary that you've made as well. Tell us about the findings of your story, which has been researched for what, about a year, you were saying?
Yeah, we've been working on this for about a year. And I think we've always wondered, why do police suspect he is the man who kidnapped and murdered Madeleine McCann?
Yeah.
And we've been able to access police files, which give us many of these answers.
Right.
So we can show pictures of him at key Maddie locations.
Yeah.
We can place him at the scene of an alleged confession. We've got stories where he describes his wish to abduct small children.
Yeah. So he is clearly a man who certainly fits the profile of a dangerous paedophile who would possibly be capable of doing something like this.
I think what we've got here is a real insight into his psyche.
Yeah.
And it does raise questions over whether he's capable of doing something like this.
Right.
And it's for the audience to draw their own conclusions, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that points towards that.
There really is. I mean, he talks about and writes about a sort of fantasy of kidnapping a small child, a 5-year-old blonde girl, you know, an awful lot of what you might call clues as to what his desires are and what he would gain if in fact he did kidnap her.
Yeah, I think the links between these abhorrent stories and Madeleine are clear to see. He talks about small children aged 3 or 4, blonde hair. He talks about using drugs to knock them out so they don't make any sound and piling them into a car. It's a deeply disturbing read, there's no doubt about that. And of course there's no direct link to Madeleine, we can't prove that, but what this does show is what this man was thinking internally.
Yes.
What makes him tick.
Right. And he was accused of a previous crime, which he was acquitted of, I think, wasn't he?
So he is a convicted rapist.
Yeah.
And he is a convicted pedophile.
Yeah.
There's no doubt over that. But last year he went on trial for more pedophile crimes and for a string of rapes. And he was cleared of those, which I think came as a shock to a lot of people.
They did, yeah.
But we've actually uncovered evidence that should have been shown in court that could perhaps have helped win a conviction.
Yeah.
And that's in today's paper, and it's in the documentary later as well.
You want to know who took Madeleine? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking, who let it happen? Who benefited? Who made sure no one could ever really know? There's no closure in this story, because closure is for fiction. What we're left with is the echo, the trail, the patterns, and the next name on the list. Because when you tug hard enough on the right thread, even the most intricate web unravels. So keep your eyes open. The machine protects its own, until someone breaks it. Come along with me as I review more unsolved cases and bizarre mysteries. Like and share this for those who still believe in coincidence, and don't forget to subscribe, because the truth doesn't knock twice.